imagine going to the doctor, getting your blood work done, and the doctor sits you down and just says, your stress markers are off the charts, your focus is completely shot, and, well, I'm writing you a prescription. But instead of, handing you a pill bottle, the prescription pad just says, sit in a quiet room, hum like a bee, and stare at the color green for 25 minutes a day.
I mean, honestly, most people would probably assume their doctor was having a breakdown.
Right.
Yeah, they'd be asking for a second opinion immediately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we're so conditioned, right? We think that biological problems require these physical chemical interventions. You take a pill, you get a surgery. But what if I told you that exact prescription, humming and staring at the color green, was just put through rigorous genomic and metabolomic trials, and the results are completely baffling the medical community? So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do.
Because today we are looking at clinical trial data that tracks the physical effects of meditation literally all the way down to the molecular level.
And that molecular focus is crucial here. Because for decades, the study of meditation has been totally dominated by, subjective surveys.
Like just asking people how they feel.
Exactly. Just asking, hey, do you feel better? But the sources we're diving into today bypass the subjective entirely. We're looking at hard, peer-reviewed science involving actual DNA methylation and blood chemistry.
Okay, so let's start by establishing the ground rules of what we're actually looking at here. What is this specific practice, and who's even doing it?
Yeah, so the topic of our deep dive today is a meditation system called Preksha Dhyana.
Okay.
It was formulated back in the 1970s by Acharya Mahaprajna. He was the 10th head of the Shivantambara Terapanth order of Jainism.
Gotcha.
But, to truly understand the cellular changes it causes, the researchers knew they needed a really pristine behavioral baseline.
Meaning they couldn't just use people who already meditate all the time.
Right. So the foundational study we're looking at didn't involve monks in a monastery. It involved 142 healthy but entirely novice college students.
Which, honestly, is a brilliant demographic to test.
It really is.
I mean, if you want to measure stress, anxiety, and just a total lack of focus, you go to a college campus.
Oh, absolutely.
They've got exams, constant social pressures, terrible sleep schedules. I mean, they're the ultimate stress test environment for any kind of cognitive intervention.
Yeah, they're basically a walking ball of stress. And the researchers didn't just hand these students a pamphlet and say, good luck. The interventions were guided by highly trained nuns.
Wow. Okay.
Specifically, Sadhvi Unatprabha, who's also known in the research as Samani Unatapragya. She serves as the lead instructor.
Okay.
And she worked along with Samaniji Chaitanya Pragya. So having these, lifelong experts lead the sessions, it ensured that the students were executing the techniques with absolute precision.
So what exactly were these stressed out students doing? Because the sources say they practiced for 25 minutes, 3 times a week, for 8 weeks.
Right.
But they weren't all doing the same thing, were they?
No, they weren't. To figure out how Preksha Dhyana actually works, the researchers broke the system apart. They isolated 2 very specific components and divided the students up.
Okay.
So the first technique they tested is called Mahaprandvani. And this is entirely sound-based.
Okay, sound-based how?
Well, the practitioner takes a really deep breath in, and on the exhale, they make this sustained, buzzing bee sound.
Oh, like a hum.
Yeah, exactly. And they focus intensely on the physical vibrations that the sound creates in their head.
So it's highly physical, like you're actively utilizing your vocal cords, your diaphragm, and just your overall lung capacity.
You really are. It's not passive at all. And the behavioral findings for the group that only did this humming technique were fascinating. After the 8 weeks, they saw significant improvements in their attention spans and a major reduction in impulsivity.
Which, I mean, makes logical sense when you think about the mechanics of it. To sustain a single controlled vocal vibration for a really long exhalation, you have to override your body's natural breathing rhythm. It requires massive executive control. You're literally training your brain to focus on a single task and suppress the impulse to get distracted or just take a ragged breath.
That is the exact mechanism at play there. But now, the second group did something completely different.
Okay, what did they do?
They practice Lishadikayan, which is a color-focused imagery technique. You close your eyes and you visualize a bright green dot, perfectly still, right on your forehead.
Just a green dot.
Yeah, often imagining it emanating from something natural, like a tree.
Just picturing a green dot. But the results for this group were completely different from the humming group, right?
Radically different. The color group didn't see that same boost in sustained attention. Instead, they saw significant improvements in their short-term working memory.
I want to pause here for a second because at first glance, that just sounds like magic.
It does.
Like, why would visualizing the color green improve your memory? But if you really think about how the brain works, visualizing a static image isn't a passive activity.
No, not at all.
It's incredibly demanding. Your visual cortex and your executive function have to work together to hold that imaginary green dot in place against a constant flood of, distracting thoughts.
Right.
It's like doing a plank, but for your working memory. You are forcing the brain to hold a heavy cognitive load.
That is a great way to visualize it.
Yeah.
You're working out the specific neural pathways responsible for holding and retrieving temporary information. So sound improves attention and color improves memory.
But the sources don't stop there.
No, they don't.
Because there was a third group in this study.
Yeah.
And this group did both. They combined the Mahaparan sound technique with the Leschetinian color visualization.
And this is where the data just jumps off the charts.
Yeah.
The researchers assumed the combined group would just show a moderate mix of both benefits.
Like a little bit of attention, a little bit of memory.
Exactly. But instead, they saw additive and multiplicative improvements. This combined group experienced massive, statistically significant jumps in digital recall, spatial recall, and listening recall. Furthermore, their psychological positivity scores completely skyrocketed, and their negativity scores dropped by nearly 20%.
It's essentially cognitive cross-training.
Yes.
Like if you just run on a treadmill, let's call it the sound technique, you improve your cardiovascular health. If you just lift weights the color technique, you improve your muscular strength.
Right, right.
But when you combine them, they interact chemically. The cardio delivers more oxygen to the muscles you're building, and you become this elite athlete. Combining the humming with the visualization catalyzed a much more profound psychological shift than either could really achieve on its own.
What's fascinating here is that these behavioral results were so extreme, they basically forced the researchers to ask a much harder question.
Which was?
Well, if these students are experiencing mathematically massive shifts in memory and mood, what is physically happening inside their cells to cause it?
Wait, hold on. You're losing me a bit here. You're telling me that sitting in a dorm room, making bee noises and thinking about the color green actually changed their cellular biology. I mean, that sounds like absolute pseudoscience.
I know it sounds like a massive leap. But the researchers were just as skeptical as you are, which is why they brought in Dr. Bassem Abomulak.
Okay, who is he?
He's a really renowned genomics expert, and he led a team to analyze the students' DNA methylation and their RNA transcriptome.
Wow.
And they specifically zoomed in on 34 students from that really high-performing combined group.
So just to refresh my own memory, and probably yours too, DNA methylation is basically the science of epigenetics, right?
Exactly.
Like if our DNA is a giant symphony orchestra, the genes are the sheet music. You can't change the sheet music.
Right, the genome is fixed.
But DNA methylation is the conductor. It involves these tiny chemical tags that attach to the DNA and act like volume knobs. The conductor can tell the string section to play louder or completely mute the brass section. It basically turns the expression of your genes up or down.
That is the perfect analogy. And Dr. Abomulak and his team used these advanced microarrays to look at the conductors in these students' cells before the 8 weeks began and then again after it ended.
Okay, and what did they find?
They found 470 differentially methylated sites, or DMS, in the genome.
Wait, meaning the meditation literally adjusted the volume knob on 470 different specific locations on their DNA.
Yep.
In just 2 months.
Yes, in just 8 weeks. And we can link these physical changes directly back to the psychological changes we talked about earlier. Remember that massive 20% drop in negativity?
Oh yeah, hard to forget.
Well, the genomic analysis revealed that this drop in negative affect perfectly correlated with a physical change at a very specific site on the genome, a site called CG170958000.
Okay, what does that specific site actually control?
It sits right next to the SLC1A2 gene.
SLC1A2.
Okay, right. And this gene provides the instructions for making a protein that acts as an excitatory amino acid transporter in the brain.
Meaning what exactly?
Essentially, it manages glutamate, which is your brain's main excitatory neurotransmitter. If you have too much glutamate lingering around, your brain is overstimulated, which presents as anxiety, stress, and negativity.
Oh my God, this is blowing my mind. So the students were reporting that they felt less stressed And the blood work proved it wasn't just a placebo effect.
Exactly.
Their genome had physically turned up the volume on the exact gene responsible for vacuuming up excess stress chemicals in the brain.
It's the ultimate proof of the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
And the team didn't even stop at the DNA level. They also looked at the transcriptome, the RNA.
Okay, so if DNA is the blueprint, RNA is the contractor actually reading the blueprint and building the house.
Spot on. Analyzing the RNA of 18 paired participants showed that 494 genes were differentially expressed.
Whoa.
Yeah. 136 were turned up and 358 were turned down.
What were those specific genes building, though?
They regulate innate and adaptive immunity, complex cell signaling, and fundamental metabolic processes. So the subjective feeling of remembering more or feeling positive is perfectly mirrored by physical switches flipping on and off.
Okay, so the DNA is issuing these new blueprints, and the RNA is getting to work. But how long does it take for those blueprints to actually turn into physical building materials we can see floating around in the body?
Well, that's exactly what the researchers wanted to know next, which led them to move from genomics to metabolomics.
Okay.
They brought in Dr. Philip Briggs McKibben, a metabolomics expert, to analyze the blood serum of 38 participants from the combined meditation group and compared them to a control group.
And just so we're clear, metabolomics is essentially looking at the exhaust fumes of the cells, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like it looks at the tiny chemicals, the metabolites and lipids left behind by cellular processes to see what the body is actually manufacturing in real time.
Precisely. And they found 12 specific circulating metabolites and lipids that increased significantly in the blood of the meditators after the 8-week intervention.
What kind of chemicals are we talking about?
We're talking about compounds like choline, cysteine, oxaproline, and a really crucial group of lipids called lysophosphatidyl-cholines, or LPCs.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the medical context of LPCs.
Yeah.
Because they are a huge deal in neurology.
No, they're critical. In clinical medicine, we typically see LPC levels plummet in patients suffering from severe cognitive decline.
Like Alzheimer's.
Like Alzheimer's disease, exactly, or schizophrenia. A drop in LPCs is generally a canary in the coal mine for poor neurological health and memory loss.
But in the blood serum of these college students,
The LPCs spiked.
Wow.
The 8 weeks of combined humming and color meditation caused these brain-protecting lipids to significantly increase.
that's incredible.
And just like the genetic data, this physical spike in LPCs strongly correlated with the students' improved digital and listening recall. Their memory improved because their bodies were literally manufacturing more memory-protecting chemicals.
Just makes complete biological sense. But, as I was reading through Dr. Briggs McKibben's metabolomic findings, there was one chemical spike that made absolutely no sense to me at all.
Oh, the hypoxanthine.
Yes, the hypoxanthine anomaly.
Ah, yes. This raises an important question about how we even categorize meditation.
Right. Because usually if you draw someone's blood and their hypoxanthine levels are through the roof, it means they just finished a brutal, sweat-drenched workout.
Exactly.
Like it's a chemical byproduct of ATP breakdown. ATP is your body's energy currency, and it breaks down into hypoxanthine when your muscles are burning intense energy.
Like during a heavy lift.
Or sprint.
Yeah.
So why on earth would sitting completely still on a cushion cause an exercise chemical to flood the bloodstream?
It seems like a total contradiction until you look really closely at the mechanics of the Mahaparayan technique.
The humming.
Right. Think about what they're physically doing. They are taking incredibly deep, controlled breaths and then sustaining an intense vocal humming vibration for 25 minutes.
So they are working out.
It is a profound form of internal aerobic exercise. The sustained vocalization and breath control demand massive amounts of energy from the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles.
Which would break down ATP.
Exactly. It vibrates the internal tissue. It safely stresses the body just enough to mimic physical exertion, which promotes this amazing energy balancing anti-inflammatory response.
So what does this all mean for you? It means we have to completely reframe how we view practices like this. Focused meditation leaves measurable, protective chemical trails in your blood.
Yes.
It is not just a mental break to clear your head. It is a tangible biochemical intervention.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that biochemical intervention becomes incredibly important when we step out of the university laboratory and into actual clinical medicine.
Right.
Because it's one thing to optimize the memory of a stressed out college student. It is another thing entirely to apply this to a patient who is actively suffering.
And that leads us to the final And honestly, perhaps the most impactful source in our stack today. It's a clinical study applying Preksha in a highly demanding pediatric clinic.
Yeah.
The patients here were children, ages 9 to 17, and they were suffering from functional abdominal pain disorder, or FAPD.
And FAPD is a truly devastating condition for a child.
Yeah.
It involves chronic, severe stomach pain that doesn't have an obvious structural cause, like an ulcer.
Right.
It's deeply linked to the gut-brain axis, meaning it's highly sensitive to stress, anxiety, and nervous system dysregulation.
And traditional treatments are notoriously difficult, right?
Very.
You can try to prescribe heavy pain medications, but obviously those come with severe side effects for a developing child.
Right.
And traditional cognitive behavioral therapy takes months, requires highly specialized child psychologists, and it's just incredibly hard to administer in a fast-paced, underfunded pediatric clinic.
So the researchers tried a cost-effective, short-course version of the Preksha program. They utilized the exact sound and color techniques we've been discussing.
So let's explain why this works on a physiological level, because we just established that humming vibrates the internal tissue. But how does that actually help a child with severe stomach pain?
It all comes back to the vagus nerve.
Okay.
The vagus nerve is basically the superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. It runs right from the brainstem, down past the vocal cords, and branches out into the digestive tract.
Got it.
When a child with FAPD is stressed, their sympathetic nervous system is trapped in fight or flight, causing severe gut inflammation and pain.
But when they practice Mahaparayan, when they make that sustained buzzing B sound, their vocal cords vibrate.
Exactly, and that physical vibration acts like a literal massage for the vagus nerve.
Wow.
It physically stimulates the nerve, forcing the brain to send anti-inflammatory signals straight down to the gut.
And the results of this study are nothing short of stunning.
Yeah.
Out of 30 pediatric patients, 28 saw improvements in their chronic pain. Let me just repeat that. 28 out of 30.
It's amazing.
And for 14 of those kids, the pain didn't just lessen, it completely resolved.
That entirely. And parallel to that physical relief, their anxiety scores just plummeted.
Incredible.
And, from a healthcare administration standpoint, this was a massive victory, too. They were able to embed this highly effective treatment into a standard pediatric practice without hiring extra medical staff, dealing with side effects, or increasing overall healthcare costs.
Which brings up a massive question for the future of medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, if this practice is cost-effective, side-effect-free, and produces results on par with or even better than traditional pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
are we looking at a future where pediatricians prescribe 25 minutes of vagus nerve humming and working memory color visualization instead of a pill?
Honestly, I believe we are. But, getting the medical establishment to that point required exactly what we've unpacked today.
The hard data.
Exactly. For decades, mind-body interventions were dismissed as alternative or just a placebo because the mechanism of action, the how and why it actually works, was totally invisible.
Right.
We needed Dr. Abamolak's genomics to show us the DNA conductors literally changing the sheet music. We needed Dr. Brits McKibben's metabolomics to show us the neuroprotective lipids flooding the blood.
Yeah.
We needed cellular evidence to prove to the medical community that this isn't magic, it's biology.
It is turning the invisible into the visible.
Absolutely.
So let's just quickly recap this incredible journey through the sources.
Yeah.
We started with an elegant system organized by Acharya Mahapragya. It utilizes incredibly simple tools, vocal sound through the Mahaparayan technique to train attention, and visualized color through Lishadian to train working memory.
And we saw that when those tools are expertly combined, as they were by instructors like Sadhvi Unat Prabha and Samaniji Chaitanya Pragya, they yield just exponential cognitive benefits.
But then we went down to the cellular level. We learned that our DNA and our blood chemistry literally transform in response to that focused attention. You can flip epigenetic switches that vacuum up stress chemicals in your brain. You can flood your bloodstream with protective lipids that fight cognitive decline, and hypoxanthine that gives your internal organs an aerobic workout. You can physically vibrate the vagus nerve to eliminate chronic physical pain in children.
It is a profound demonstration that the mind and the body are not separate entities. They are a single, continuous, highly responsive feedback loop.
And that feedback loop is always running, which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over. If just 25 minutes of intentionally focusing on a humming sound and the color green can positively alter your DNA expression, spike brain-protecting lipids in your blood, and eliminate physical pain, what is your daily passive excessive intake of stressful news, chaotic noise, and screen time doing to your cellular makeup right now? You're always